Connecticut is now the latest state to allow businesses to reopen at full capacity beginning March 19th. Joining us right now to discuss that and so much more about where we are as hopefully this pandemic, I want to say winds down, but I know we still got some work to do here. Dr. Scott Gottlieb is here, former FDA commissioner, CNBC contributor. He also serves on the boards of Illumina and Pfizer. He also happens to be a resident of Connecticut, a place that I've been spending a lot of time in as well over the past year. I'm headed there this weekend, Scott. So tell me what you think of this decision by the governor.
Well, look, I think it's a middle path. The governor isn't fully reopening the state in the way that Texas did. Masks are still going to be required. This begins in about 2 weeks, and so they'll continue to monitor the data over the next 2 weeks and see how things evolve. Hopefully, they'll continue to evolve in a positive direction. My understanding is they're still going to keep the curfew in place on restaurants, so restaurants aren't going to be able to turn into bars. So it's not quite the full reopening that Texas did. I mean, I think the governor here is carving a prudent middle path. It's similar to what Massachusetts did. Massachusetts went a little bit further. I think they've opened their bars up there. But I think that this is what states need to be contemplating. You know, what can you do that allows business activity to return, allows consumers to get back to some semblance of normal behavior while doing it in a more prudent fashion. So by leaving the mask mandate in place, I think that that's going to provide, you know, some added protection as we transition to this new normal.
Right. Scott, the only thing that I questioned in all of this was, we're, I don't know, hopefully 8 to 12 weeks away from, you know, really a lot more vaccines being available and much larger percentages of the country and the states like Connecticut being vaccinated, first of all. So, you know, would it hurt to wait an extra 4 weeks, an extra 6 weeks, an extra 8 weeks? And then the second piece of it is, I completely agree with you in terms of the good news is there is going to be masking. I questioned whether they were courting trouble, if you will, by doing a full reopening of restaurants to full capacity, given that that's something that's indoors where the truth is you can't wear a mask.
Yeah, look, I don't think we're going to be able to wait a full 6 weeks. I mean, it depends on what happens. If the situation continues to improve, I think consumers are just going to go out. And so I think we're trying to fit policy to accommodate what consumers are going to be doing. This isn't happening tomorrow. It's happening in 2 weeks. The mask mandate's still in place. I think the other thing to consider here is that the overall risk to the population has gone down substantially. 16% of the U.S. population has at least one dose of the vaccine. 8% are fully vaccinated. Connecticut's done a lot better than most states in getting vaccines into their older population. They've done an age-based approach. They've been very successful getting 65 and above vaccinated. So as the overall vulnerability of the population declines, it allows you to lean forward a little bit. If we have, 1,000 infections now in the state, that's a lot different than 1,000 infections 10 months ago when none of the vulnerable residents of the state were vaccinated. So, I think you need to try to provide a pathway that allows people to gradually get back to normal activity. This is something that's going to take effect in 2 weeks. The governor has to give direction to people and signal where we're heading. Obviously, if the situation changes, B117 is growing in the state. If the situation changes, I'm sure they'll reassess it. But I think this is the kind of thing. I mean, you can quibble whether 2 weeks is right, whether we should have waited 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But I think it's the kind of thing we need to be doing around the country, is at least providing a map of where we're heading if the situation continues to improve without taking our foot off the brake all at once. Leaving the masks in place, having that be the last thing that we lift, I think that's prudent.
And just so we're clear, the indoor restaurant piece doesn't bother you?
Look, would I eat in an indoor restaurant? No. I'm going to be going out to restaurants, I'm sure, over the course of March, but I'm going to be eating outside. So it just doesn't seem like a risk that's worth taking to me. There's a lot of people who've been fully vaccinated. There's a lot of people who've had the infection. There's a lot of people who are young and not as worried about the infection. I suspect those are a lot of the people who are going out and going to be dining indoors. The reality is when you look at restaurants right now, even at 25% capacity, they're not full. People are going to go back to the restaurants not when governors tell them they can go back to the restaurants. They're going to go back to the restaurants when they feel safe. And if the situation continues to improve in the state and people start to feel safe, they start to get vaccinated, I think that's when you're going to see people return.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.